I am Ann Kiguta, glad to be with you in this new year. Tonight we have a snapshot at what the week has been in politics. Certainly very interesting things have been said. We have experts who will be joining us in a short while in studio with an interesting look at what your politicians are all about. Of course, we're also all about the nomination process that is expected sometime this week. This and more lined up. Let's get straight to our top stories this hour.
Nasema wewe ni .com, wewe ni Jubilee Generation, basi chukua una jukumu. Jiuliza kama uko tayari kurudisha yale mashamba ambayo unamiliki ambayo si halali.
Kama ako na mali ambayo anajua mimi nimeiba, okay, ataje.
It's an all-out battle as scored. Jubilee scramble for votes.
Promise what you can deliver and deliver what you promise.
I will keep my promises, Mudavadi says as he campaigns in Kitale. Nomination jitters, aspirants raise concern ahead of the historic party primaries. Still in this bulletin, the phobia of the number 13. Thank you for joining us. The Coalition on Reforms and Democracy today launched a scathing attack on the Omani and Jubilee coalitions as it concluded its tour of the Western region in Bungoma County today. While making their pitch in Trade Minister Moses Wetangula's home turf, CORD presented itself as the custodian of reforms in a region that has traditionally been the epicenter of opposition politics in the province. Our Western region reporter Fred Omulo filed a story that makes an interesting twist in Prime Minister Raila Odinga's presidential bid.
The Jubilee coalition's withering attack on CORD at the launch of its campaigns yesterday in Nairobi touched a raw nerve, and the reactions came in fast and furious.
Kama wewe nasema wewe ni .com, wewe ni Jubilee Generation, basi chukua una jukumu. Jiuliza kama uko tayari kurudisha yale mashamba ambayo unamiliki ambayo si halali.
And you cannot bring international investors in our country if the next leaders you're going to elect will not have international reputation. Nobody will invest in this economy. I must tell you this. It is my duty to be able to tell you this.
Their characterization of CORD as a team of has-beens out to perpetuate themselves in power didn't go down well with the party's luminaries, who chose Bungoma's poster ground to hit back at anyone and everyone.
Kama jamii ya Mzee Kenyatta wanashamba Kenya hii, ukubwa unashinda Nyanza province. Mutakubalianaje na Uhuru Kenyatta kuwa ndiye atatekeleza katiba kuleta usawa wa mashamba?
Wengine wanasema sisi ni Jubilee, sisi ni .com, sisi ni hakuna kitu kama hiyo. Jubilee si umri peke yake. Jubilee inakuja na jukumu lake.
With only a week down in major party campaigns, the rhetoric is taking a turn towards the nasty, and this rally was no exception.
Na Mudavadi atuishe. Akasema Mudavadi akasema ni lazima niandike barua mimi nikuwe president. Ruto akaangaliana na Uhuru. Wakaulizana tufanye nini? Tumudu. Walimudu ama kumudu.
And with this, CORD concluded its tour, but Amani linger on until Tuesday.
The Amani Alliance says it should form the next government as it will keep the promises it has made so far. The alliance that was in Kitale, Trans Nzoia County to solidify further the Western vote dismissed recent opinion polls saying they were biased in favor of the CORD coalition. Masikandie with that story.
The Amani Alliance arrived at the Kenyatta Stadium in Kitale Sunday afternoon, led by its flag-bearer presidential candidate Musalia Mudavadi. The Amani Alliance was here in a bid to woo the Trans Nzoia County to dance in unison to the Amani tune as the March 4th election date nears. They say the alliance will keep promises made to Kenyans.
Promise what you can deliver and deliver what you promise. Kwa hivyo mimi nasimama hapa kusema kama rais wa nne wa Jamhuri ya Kenya, kupitia kwa upendo wenu, yale nitaahidi, yale tutaahidi, yale serikali yetu itaahidi, tutatimiza ili tuwe na contract sawa sawa na wananchi wa Kenya. UDM!
The alliance hit out at the Code Alliance. They say all propaganda should be sorted out on March 4th.
Wale mliofikiri ni wajinga wamerevuka. Na mjinga akierevuka, mwerevu wako wapi? Liwe liwalo, tarehe 4 March tutakuwa na presidential candidate mmoja kutoka West.
Pigeni kura kwa fujo. Si fujo ya kumuumiza binadamu. Fujo ya kuumiza debe. Our support for Musalia Mudavadi is based on the fact that Kenya needs a safe pair of hands.
New Fund Kenya!
They dismissed the latest opinion poll that had the Code Alliance leading by 51%, while the Amani Alliance at a low 3%. The Alliance say they are confident at a first-round win and that the polls were biased.
I want to tell you, opinion polls are not going to elect the president for us. Ni nyinyi mna jukumu, tarehe 4 ni nyinyi mtaamua ni nani rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya.
The alliance heads to Vihiga County tomorrow to solidify further the Western votes. Amani Alliance sold its policies to Kitale residents, saying that it will improve the education and economic sector if elected into the next government. The Amani Alliance winds its political rally here at Kenyatta Stadium just a day after CORD visited this exact stadium to woo the Trans Nzoia voters. The Alliance insists that it will win with the first round, and that is up to the Kenyan voters to decide in March 4th this year. Marcy Kendi reporting for KTN at Kenyatta Stadium in the county of Trans Nzoia.
And now let's hear from the sole female presidential candidate, Martha Karua. She says that she will name her running mate on Monday as the countdown to the March 4th election begins. In the meantime, less than 50 days to the general election, and some presidential aspirants opted to seek divine intervention rather than hold political rallies. These and more stories in our political news wrap.
Martha Karua is among 3 presidential candidates who have not named their preferred running mates who will fill the position of deputy president if they win the presidential election. Martha seems to have beaten Peter Kenneth and Deputy Prime Minister Musalia Mudavadi to the task, with a promise to her supporters that she will name her running mate on Monday.
Tomorrow, my party will be officially giving me the nomination. It is after then that I'll finalize the consultations of running mate, and I'll be naming the running mate.
With less than 50 days to the election, Karua took her campaigns to Nairobi's Korogosho, where she urged voters to vote in leaders who were development-oriented. In the meantime, Eagle Alliance's presidential candidate Peter Kenneth spent his Sunday at Nairobi's Pentecostal Church in Ngong.
Is rising unemployment. It is standing officially at 40%, and officially it could be 55%. But what we need to appreciate is that 52% of the entire population is below 18, and that provides a challenge for the future, which if we do not fix now, we'll blame ourselves in the future.
Kenneth also urged other aspiring leaders to conduct issue-based campaigns and step away from the usual political mudslinging.
I praise him and give him.
And finally, Restore and Build Kenya's presidential aspirant, Professor James Ole Kiapi, challenged the electorate not to vote in leaders based on political euphoria.
Tusichukulie uchaguzi huo kwa njia ya kirahisi, njia ya kimchezo, siasa ya kivumbi. Watu wanakuja na kitu inaitwa euphoria, kukimbia kila mahali, halafu watu wanakosa kufikiria.
Kiapi was speaking during a church service at Kegoi Methodist Church in Maua, Meru County. Catherine Omwando, KTN.
Well, with only 3 days remaining to the make-or-break political party primaries, jitters are growing within a section of those parties. Already, a section of Court Alliance members from the Wiper Democratic Movement are headed to court to stop nominations in Changamwe constituency, while a section of TNA members held demonstrations in Kajiado claiming one aspirant has been locked out unfairly. In Nairobi, Bishop Margaret Wanjiru, who is gunning for the governorship in the Court Alliance, will have to wait another day to know whether she will be cleared to contest. KTN's Noah Otieno with the details.
The ODM party briefed all their returning officers ahead of anticipated massive party primaries this Thursday. The party is grappling with the headache of the fate of one of their flamboyant front-runners in the race for Nairobi governorship, Margaret Wanjiru, who is yet to be cleared to contest.
Bishop Wanjiru, I have said we are also finalizing them on Monday. That is included.
But anxiety and outright grumbling continues within the parties as some aspirants and their supporters sense what they claim is mischief from their party headquarters. Some supporters of ODM in Migori County and Court Alliance supporters in Changamwe in the coast claim their aspirants have been unfairly locked out of the nominations.
Kuna majina mengine hayako katika ballot papers, na tumeambiwa aspirants wa Wiper Party hawatafanya nominations kwa sababu mmoja wao amepatiwa direct nomination. So tumechukua hatua ya kwenda kotini kusimamisha nomination za code Changamwe constituency Alhamisi.
Same complaints were coming from a section of the National Alliance members in Kajiado who claimed they are being arm-twisted into nominating people they do not want.
After nominations tunasema kama tutakuwa watu tumechagua ndio wako kwa debe kubwa. Sisi wote tunaenda wapi? ODM anapigia watu wengine kura.
One of the biggest headaches facing the parties in these dying minutes is how to deal with disputes that will no doubt arise of the Thursday nominations process.
Any complaints after the vote shall be given to a county tribunal. If the complaint persists, it shall then be forwarded to the National Appeals Board.
Aspirants across the country hit the road even as confusion rages on how the different groups will share nomination venues. Most parties are planning to use public institutions, but an inter-parties meeting that had been planned to agree on venues did not take place. The ODM party will publish nomination venues in the newspapers Monday morning, while the Kenya National Congress of Peter Kenneth holds a meeting of over 700 aspirants in Nairobi also on Monday.
The EGO is meeting tomorrow to go with the aspirants, and the EGO will announce its lineup in the course of the week.
The United Democratic Forum and their Amani Alliance officials were on Sunday holding meetings in the regions with aspirants and returning officers. Now, KTN, Sunday night.
And in a short while, we'll be talking to Franklin Bett, who's the coordinator ODM Elections Board Chairman, about the nomination process. But first, Deputy Prime Minister Uhuru Kenyatta says the Court Coalition leader Raila Odinga should specify the so-called stolen property that he alleges was stolen from public coffers by persons in the Jubilee Coalition. Speaking in his Kiambu County, the presidential hopeful attacked the Court Coalition on what he termed unfair criticism. Uhuru says the Court Alliance was hoping that he would drop his presidential bid after it was confirmed that he has a case to answer at the ICC, and they are now using propaganda to discredit his presidential bid. Arun Ucheng was in Githunguri, Kiambu County, and now reports.
A day after unveiling his presidential team at Uhuru Park, the Jubilee Coalition is in Kiambu County, the county of his presidential flag bearer Uhuru Kenyatta, and exuding confidence that the Jubilee team will carry the day. The Jubilee leader used his home turf to ask the Prime Minister to come clean over the molasses plant before he could allege that all those who have stolen public coffers to return. Uhuru says he personally has not stolen anything from anyone and asked the CORD coalition to carry out their campaigns without mentioning his name.
Nasikia akisema kule aliko ati ya kwamba ati kwanza ati wale ambao wameiba mali ya wengine ati kwanza warudishe. Si ndivyo amesema? Mimi namwambia hivi. Kama ako na mali ambayo anajua mimi nimeiba, ataje sawa sawa. Sawa sawa. Yeye nakidokea mhudumia.
The Deputy Premier also said there are cases that are on the trial stage in The Hague can never deter them from seeking the mandate of Kenyans to lead them.
Ati mkichagua sijui Hague, sijui nini, waambie hivi. Kesi iko. Na tunajua mbele ya Mwenyezi Mungu itakwisha. Si ndio? Kwa hivyo wachaneni na hiyo maneno, uzieni wa Kenya sera zenu.
The coalition deputy presidential contender William Ruto also accused the CORD coalition of waiting to reap from their cases at The Hague, but were rather disappointed when the cases were pushed until the end of the election.
Nyinyi mlituombea mpaka wakabadilisha maneno wakasema wacha hiyo kesi ikae mpaka baada ya uchaguzi. Si mnajua hivyo? Na mimi na Man UK huyu Uhuru Kenyatta tulikubaliana hatutaki tena watu wetu wagombane ama wapigane waharibu mali kwa sababu ya maneno ya uchaguzi. Tunaambia wale wengine wa vitendawili hata hawa pia wastaafu. Sasa na wakikosa kustaafu basi tugojee kwa debe itaamua warudi kwao, wakae na wazee wale wengine waangalie vijana wakitawala taifa la Kenya. Sini hivyo, hata askari tutampatia kumchunga, TV tutamnunulia ndio angalie siasa vile inaendelea Kenya.
Ruto also says the economy of the country is growing at snail's pace due to technologically challenged individuals, and said should they win the election, then priority would be given to ICT advancement.
Karne ya 21 dunia inaelekea katika kutengeneza uchumi inayoendeshwa na teknolojia na masomo. We are moving to a knowledge-based, technology-driven economy, and we must equip our young people, men and women, with the necessary skills and technology to participate meaningfully in driving the economy of the 21st century.
The rally was also attended by different leaders who endorsed the candidature of Uhuru and Ruto.
Mimi sina tamaa, tunataka Mheshimiwa Uhuru atuongoze kwa tambili, Mheshimiwa Ruto kwa tambili, alafu baadaye 2030 kuendelea ndio tuangalie mambo ya vijana.
The alliance also accused pollsters of misleading the country, saying they are being funded by their rivals. Aaron Ochen, KTN, Sunday night.
Aaron, thank you for that. And as promised earlier, joining us now is Franklin Bett, who sits on the CORD and ODM Elections Board as chair. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know you've had a crazy day today. Thank you for coming. Do you believe there is ahead of us a free and fair nomination process across the parties?
I agree, it was a crazy day. But crazy towards goodness. I want again to underline to the Kenyan people that it is extremely important that they conduct themselves in an orderly and peaceful manner, be it at these nominations or in the actual election in March 2013. That is the main issue which we must all grapple with.
Security is definitely a huge concern, but
yes,
you know what some pundits say? They say parties are partly to blame for the lack of real preparedness on the security front because of how long it took to get an Inspector General in place ahead of this election. Do you agree? Are parties to blame?
Yes, I do agree. We have procrastinated on certain issues to the extent that they become negative in terms of benefits to us. So I think we must be proactive. Like when we respond even to incidences, like the Madare issue, like the Tana River, or even the MRC situation, I want to urge the new Inspector General to have a rapid response team and really do so, not by name, but by actual action. It's very important. It gives confidence. It gives hope to the people when we respond to incidences that are taking place in the country. The easily incidences are such situations whereby when those things happen, we must respond and we must be seen to take action and we must be seen to parade individuals who may have been suspected to have been involved in such heinous acts.
And of course the ability to just vote freely and not feel that you'll be intimidated and all of that is part of that free and fair process that I'm talking about.
Yes, it is very important.
But let me also ask you, bearing in mind the outcry, and we've seen in the stories that have run earlier, that are already happening within parties for various reasons. Some people say that this is the beginning of the end, that this is where it all goes downhill, that you start with a flawed nomination process, and out of that, because you don't get a pool of democratically elected leaders, then the election in itself will already be bungled.
And my initial message is to the candidates, to the aspirants. The language, the body language they exhibit in public is very important. Are they exhibiting a situation that is looking like violent? And the public would then be reflecting in their supporters. I want to urge my colleagues who are campaigning across the country, across parties, let us exhibit a sense of sobriety, a sense of humility, a sense of respect, a sense of love. After this election, there is one thing that is common. We will remain Kenyans. It doesn't matter which party we belong to. So I want to urge, and also the supporters, we in code, we have said any person, be it the aspirant or the supporter, who would be fomenting chaos.
What will you do?
We have made up our minds. We will disqualify that candidate.
We'll hold you to your word.
Yes, I mean it. And I always want to say that it is important to go by the rules, and you apply those rules.
In court, there is already complaints of a selective interpretation, I beg your pardon, in ODM, a selective interpretation of the party constitution as far as it requires party officials to quit if they want to run for an elective position. And this hasn't happened with your chairman, with your secretary general. How are you inspiring confidence that your nomination process will be free and fair and will not be influenced by these people who continue to hold key offices in the party? The ODM constitution saves the national officials from that requirement to resign. That's the selective interpretation that we're talking about.
But that is the rule. That is the rule. It's already written there. It's not being introduced now. It is in our constitution. Like is in cabinet. When cabinet collapses tomorrow, all the ministers will be in place until the elections are held. So we also, on our part as ODM, are holding our national officials, the chairman, the secretary general, but not branch officials. We require them all to resign their positions before the nomination. So let us separate the two. Our national officials are saved from resignation because you still have to have somebody signing some checks for us to be able to operate as a party.
Finally, how do you intend to ensure, especially, let's focus on CORD and on ODM, I beg your pardon, that there is a dispute resolution mechanism that can be seen to be credible, given that these nominations are happening Thursday, Friday, IEBC needs that list?
One, I have told you the most important thing is the behavior of the aspirants and the behavior of the supporters.
So barring angels taking part in your process, what are you going to do?
So, and we have in place a mechanism for dispute resolution, beginning from the county level and to the national level. And we have asked our partner parties to have a similar arrangement so that we try to deal with disputes at the county, at the grassroots, before they are appealed to the national. And if a person at the national still feels aggrieved, then the IEBC has got another mechanism for that
within
resolution.
24 hours?
I think the resolutions are going beyond that. To my knowledge, to my information from the IEBC, the resolutions of disputes I think are going up to the 21st of the month.
An issue that still needs a lot of clarity, that has been disputed in other quarters, but I certainly do want to thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
And wish you all the best.
Thanks.
Now, did you pay much attention to today's date? It's the 13th day of January 2013, and historically, 13 is a mysterious number that's linked with fear and misfortune. Not many people are comfortable with the number 13, especially in the West, and experts say while the fear surrounding the number 13 is imaginary, the phobia is real, sometimes reaching clinical levels. KTN's Angel Katusia sheds more light into this phobia.
There is something about the number 13 that bothers people, and of course it is a number that we're going to see a lot more of as the calendar has already flipped to 2013.
The number 13 is actually the source of great distress to very many people.
This is the fear of the number 13. This is the labor ward at the Nairobi Women's Hospital. This room with a space for 4 beds has only 3. The bed number 13 is missing. The hospital says it was not intentional, but the bed would have congested the room. However, they agree it has worked for them.
It's generally by coincidence, but then it works for us because people out there have a superstition about the number 13.
In Nairobi Hospital, we have bed number 12A instead of having 13.
At the Kivi Milimani Hotel, the number 13 is alien. Neither the rooms nor the tables have been given the number 13. Alternative names have been replaced with what should be number 13.
Juu inaaminika kuwa haina bahati hata.
At another hotel, the room number 13 existed, but with time the hotel changed it to a store.
We realized, though it's a foreign culture, most people don't like that number 13.
Many high-rise buildings have also devised a way to avoid the floor number 13.
There are people who will not go to a 13th floor. There are people who will not sleep on a bed that has anything to do with number 13. There are people who will not create a table with 13 chairs around it.
Experts say there are people with clinically proved fear of the number 13. They believe tragedy or misfortune tags along the number.
But there are people who become paralyzed with panic and fear and will have nothing to do with the number 13. Even the thought of it causes them to panic.
57 people died in road accidents across the country only 4 days into the new year. Tana River also exploded into fresh attacks only few days into the new year as well. Those who believe that the number 13 is an unlucky number have already started linking these incidences to it. Others are even worried that the country is going to polls in this year. However, experts say otherwise.
I have certainly heard a lot of people saying, Daktari, what does it portend for us? Does it mean that we are going to have serious problems with the general elections being held in the year 2013?
This number has implications on business revenue as well.
That particular day, many airlines offer very discounted tickets because there are so many airline passengers who are so superstitious.
Even in sports circles, this number is feared. For instance, clubs like Arsenal and Liverpool don't have player number 13. However, some like Manchester and Chelsea have. In rally races, there is no car number 13. The fear of number 13 is based on many theories, one of them being biblical, that there were 13 people on the Last Supper, including Judas Iscariot who betrayed Jesus, and what followed was suffering. However, in some regions, 13 is considered a lucky number. For example, in Italy, a child born on the 13th is believed to be very successful. Experts, however, conclude this is a superstition and there is no proof that the number 13 spells doom. Angel Katusa, KTN, Sunday night.
Well, I hope you had a lovely day despite the number being 13 there. Time for us to dissect the newsmakers and what's been making headlines this entire week. Today we put a twist to it, taking a look at the verbal and non-verbal communication that those who want to be our political leaders have been offering. Joining me now in studio is Derek Banga. He's to my far right. He's the Managing Director of Public Image. Thank you so much for coming in. And Professor Edward Kisiangangi, who is a political expert. Gentlemen, karibuni sana. Derek, let me begin with you because the kind of analysis that you offer is a little bit different from what Professor Kisiangangi will be giving us in a short while. Tell us about communication skills and what you read from politicians.
Well, what we're looking at with politicians is that they are seen, they are heard, and they are remembered for the right reasons. So what I do in the context of that is work on analyzing the non-verbal communication, looking to see whether the words that are coming out of their mouth actually match the message that is being given by the body, because the body never lies, and very often there is a mismatch, and it's very interesting to see how that play comes about. So together with my colleague Paul from Jade Communications, we really look and see, is that message getting through? This is something that they cannot hide and has a huge impact on how we, the voters and the potential audience or their target market, views them.
Very interesting, and we'll see whether what he will say will agree with that. We want to begin by taking a look at what NOC Kenya leader, the sole female presidential aspirant in this coming election, had to say earlier this week. Take a listen.
Naona wanahabari wakiandika fulani fulani ndiye ako na nguvu, hata mwingine akauliza Martha Karua ataenda wapi? Kabla ya kuwa mwanasiasa nilikuwa Martha Karua Mkenya. Baada ya siasa nitakuwa Martha Karua Mkenya. Wacha kuuliza ya Martha Karua. Uliza yako mwenyewe, ndugu yangu, dada yangu. Uliza baada ya uchaguzi tarehe 4, tarehe 5 utaamkia Kenya ya aina gani?
Karua earlier this week, and gentlemen, to me it was a surprising quote because I think this is the most dejected, I would say, I have seen her on the campaign trail. We know her as this fiery politician, but does she seem to be somebody who's still seriously going for the top spot or not?
That's an interesting observation, Anne. And Martha Karua is known as a direct communicator, rather. So she is very strong in terms of her body language, in terms of her gestures. This is one of the few times that I have seen her, certainly as a presidential aspirant, where the body language was a little bit defeatist. You can see the slump of the shoulders. It is almost as if she has decided to throw in the towel. Now, I'm not saying that she has, but her body language was telling in this case.
It sounds like a shauri yenu type of speech. After March the 4th, on the 5th, you'll get the leaders you will elect. She's finally accepting opinion polls?
Yes, Martha Karua, and as you can see, she has given up. She's saying, I can't make it, but she's also bitter. You can see the bitterness on her face. She knows very well that she has been pursuing issues. She's one of the politicians that have been talking about issues in this country, but then they are never heard and they are never understood, especially in central Kenya. Her major opponent has been Uhuru Kenyatta. People are likely to listen to Uhuru Kenyatta pursuing, whipping up ethnic support, but for her, she has been talking about issues, nobody listens and she's giving up.
You know, when did the rain begin to beat her? Is it a case of the firebrand being consumed by her own fire, refusing to work in a coalition?
She doesn't understand the electorate, especially from her own home area. The electorate wants to think about the ethnic issues. She doesn't talk about the ethnic issues, so she doesn't get it. And she has been pursuing the wrong message. She has given the wrong messages all along. She didn't understand the political terrain, and that's why she has just realized that 2 months to the election, or probably 7 weeks, she's not communicating, and therefore she has to give in and probably go back to law and practicing law and do other things.
I don't know if Martha will necessarily go back to law, but anyway, a day is a long time in politics. We'll see what happens. Let's now take a listen to Saboti MP Eugene Wamala with a very interesting take of what Western Kenya has to offer.
Yule mtu wewe unaweza amini apikie chakula wewe na familia yako, asikuwekee sumu akuue. Huyo ni mtu ambaye wewe na taifa la Kenya linaweza likamili. And from this land of cooks and watchmen, we are presenting to this nation a leader who shall be the ultimate watchman who will watch over all Kenyans.
From the land of cooks and watchmen, I don't know how kindly Musalia Mudavadi will take that description, but is he playing the stereotype right?
I think it's very clear that, first of all, Eugene is talking about something which happened many years ago when a senior politician from Central Kenya argued along those lines. But he's resurrecting that argument because he's also desperate. I don't think Eugene has a strong political mind. I don't know who advises him. But if I were in his camp, I would tell him that he has a lot to learn in terms of politics, and that's why he makes mistakes. He's now realizing that he must go back to the ethnic factor, try to whip up Luhya support, and start bargaining from there. He was a presidential candidate. Where is he now?
My question is, why not sell Western Kenya as a region that is as capable as any other to produce a credible, strong leader?
That is why I'm saying Eugene has a weak political mind. And that you can
Derek, do you agree?
He's pandering to the base here. And I'm not sure who was in that particular audience, but he's got to be aware that there were a row of microphones there. This is something that is going to be seen to a national audience. So the words that come out of your mouth, you've got to be very careful about the things you say. Pandering to the base, sticking to old-fashioned stereotypes, as you said, not very presidential, not very leadership, not showing leadership qualities, certainly in my book.
And you know, who is he calling a watchman? That area he comes from has highly educated people.
Including himself.
Including himself. So he's selling too low, and he has gone below the par. Nobody expects a presidential candidate until recently to argue like that. I think he has very poor political advice.
Let me quickly sidetrack and go on to Mudavadi, who once Uhuru Kenyatta rejected him and that coalition. Do you think he's been playing his cards right in terms of changing this tune to be, you know what, I'm that honest leader who was shunned? Or does he seem like a man who does not also have a strong political mind, did read the signs of the times, and now he's getting what he asked for?
And look at his friend, Anne. He has Eugene. They share something in common. He doesn't have a strong political...
Please don't say a weak political mind.
He doesn't have this is academic. I can prove that. He has a weak political mind, and that's why you can see that Musalia expected Uhuru to give him power. I think the practice of power, since Machiavelli up to now, is not about people handing over power to you. You get political power by domination. You don't get political power by persuasion. He thinks you can go to church and just be given that. Uhuru is doing real politics. But Musalia wants to sit in the kitchen and be called and be given something. Musalia wants to do that. It can't work, Anne. It has never worked.
Strong sentiment.
So really, what you need to do is that probably Musalia should go back to the drawing board, acquire a new personality with which to bargain for power. He doesn't have that. Around him, there is nobody who can help him bargain for power, and that is where his weakness is. And he shares that with Eugene. And you just wonder, even today he's explaining to people, look, I talked to my brothers, they told me this, political power is hard business.
Let me cut you short. Derek, tell me you have kinder words for the man.
Watch the body language of the man when he's speaking in public. Is this the body language of a potential leader of this particular country? Is this the body language of somebody who can stand up to all these different people that he has been trying to woo? He got them and then he was moved here. This is something that's really telling. So for me, Musalia Mudavadi certainly needs to work a little bit more on giving us the vigor, giving us more of the passion. I think he's a little bit laid back and doesn't come across as the type of leader, certainly, that we're looking for.
Very interesting, but perhaps that may just be his selling point, that he's not the extreme. We'll find out on March the 5th, I suppose. Let's move on to the original orator himself, Raila Odinga. This is what he had to say this week.
Hii ni kama mto Nile ambaye sasa kule Kagera imeingiza, Nzoia imeingiza, Yala imeingiza, Sondo Miriu imeingiza, Kucha imeingiza, Mara ya Victoria. Alafu sasa Nile inatoa huko. Nile peke yake inatoa. Na hiyo ni maji mzito. Imetoka Jinja, inaenda Misri. Upende usipende itafika wapi? Itafika wapi? Sisi ni mighty river, the Nile.
10 years of proverbs and metaphors, are they still working in 2013, do you think?
This is classic Raila. The parables,
that's great.
The similes, the riddles. Yes, the question is, are they still working? Do Kenyans, you know, when about communicating, and Raila is one of these spirited communicators, so stories naturally come to him, and we love him for this, and he connects with the audience. But the fact is, I think we have moved on. I think Kenyans are now looking for somebody who's going to give us real solutions to the problems that we face. If I was part of his communication team, I would say, keep those riddles, keep that type of communication, because it does create that sort of positive reaction from the audience, but now link that to some of the issues that this country is facing.
Do you agree?
And how we resolve them.
I differ a little bit. If you look at him, I would just tell him to change some of the messages. But in terms of using riddles, giving those stories, Raila is a quintessential, effective politician. He's making his point. Remember, Anne, I've just told you a moment ago that in politics, you win power by domination. When he communicates about him being the big river which is flowing in the Mediterranean Sea, he's already saying he has huge hands, he has a huge chest to take everybody on and still tolerate their nastiness and their goodness. So therefore, he's dominating already his opponents, and there are a lot of people who have joined him. So that message to me, it begins.
In your opinion, it still works?
It still works because it shows him he's dominating. So even those who are still wavering, they still think Raila accommodates them. He's saying he has room for everybody. That is all he's saying. And that's very effective. I think
I'm not sure I've read that far, but let me let you run away with that point as we quickly wind up. Let's listen to.
No, I would like you to read Machiavelli's Prince, and you'll get the.
We'll have a chat about that off air. But let's move on to the next one. William Ruto, who is a man who has probably had enough of the 10 years of those kind of analogies. This is what he said this week in reference to Raila Odinga.
Kuna jamaa moja wa analog amekwama kwa referendum iliyopita. Bado wanazungumzia maneno ya referendum iliyopita kwa sababu ni analog, upgrade inachukua muda.
And the question is, he is the so-called youthful leader who was in parliament, in government perhaps, and at a more youthful time than Raila. Did that energy really transfer into meaningful action, do you think?
Two things. First of all, he served in the government as Minister for Agriculture. This thing has been overplayed. I don't know really what his achievements were, because whatever he did was government policy, and I'm sure
cheaper
he did.
Fertilizer.
And cheaper fertilizer. So, so that's the first thing. I don't know what he did there alongside his friend Uhuru Kenyatta, what they did in Treasury to make sure that everybody accepts Kenya as one country. I don't know. But what the second thing that I want to tell you is this. Every old man or old woman you see in Kenya has young people. These guys are polarizing our country when they use this kind of language about analog and digital. I could be 60 years, but I have 30-year-olds, and I have something to offer them. So are they going to say, these ones cannot say anything, I've put them aside? Where is Ruto accommodating the old men and women of this country, the likes of Mwai Kibaki, the likes of Daniel Arap Moi? Have they expired to the extent that we don't want them to influence anything and say anything?
The sad answer to that for some people might be yes. What do you think, Derek?
Listen, this is, again, the quintessential politician, and Ruto epitomizes better than most. First of all, he's a direct communicator. He's speaking to that target audience using words like analog and the inference to digital. But as Professor was saying, there is a demographic there that he is not connecting with.
He's alienating
fact,
them.
Exactly. And what it seems like is that, for me, certainly in terms of Ruto, is that he'll talk about things that are pertaining to him. This is a man who worked with Raila on the other side, and he didn't say anything the whole time he worked with him. But the moment that he switches sides, here he's saying that he's a man who's talking analog.
To be fair, doesn't he sound just like the rest of them?
That's what I'm saying, quintessential Kenyan politician.
But also another thing, if you look at his body language, the way Ruto emphasizes his points, you see something arid in the argument, and you are not likely to trust him. He has a crisis of trust. I don't know. You just see that he's addressing the audience that my brother is talking about, but he doesn't believe anything.
It's all about sound bites, and it's all about pandering to the camera.
Yes.
It is not about really. If I was a voter, I think trust is an issue that he needs to work.
I hope you are a voter.
Yes.
Never mind that. Let's wind it up, gentlemen, because we must listen to Juji's Member of Parliament, Aden Duale, today. This is what he had to say after an opinion poll was released by Infotrack Research and Consulting that, of course, put the Court Coalition at the tops. And this is the jab he had for its CEO, Angela Ambitho.
Biologically, financially, we will tell the country the relationship between opinion pollsters and the Prime Minister. Sababu, hiyo opinion poll tunajua hata kwa leo TV muangalie ule msichana. Muangalie ametoka wapi.
Now that certainly has to be below the belt.
It is naive. And it shows a politician, this is the sort of person that you would not make a spokesman for your party. Because we have had, look, in this country, you have had Joe Nyaga and his brothers disagreeing politically. So when you talk about biology, biology is not necessarily the influence of our thinking. Everybody is independent. So if you are going to accuse somebody because they are related to another person, we are all related to somebody. There are so many people in the Jubilee who are related to...
Are you saying she is related to...
No, I don't know about that, but is that the point? The point that we have here is that there's an opinion poll. And I wish that these politicians looked at the methodology of that was used to have this opinion poll in place and see whether there is any truth in it and work on their weaknesses. But whenever it favors them, they say it's okay. When it doesn't favor them, they get naive to this point of even talking about biology. I think Adani Duale does not deserve the attention he's getting.
There was also that subtle dig about her being a woman. The fact that perhaps that she's a woman, that is why we cannot trust her, we cannot trust the polls. Also, look at his body language, that strident hand going like this.
Yes.
You have the closed fist, you have the hand. It's almost like a baton which is trying to beat you into submission, saying, you must not believe this, you must not believe this. That is telling.
Well, guess who was not submissive? And I'll just quickly read this to you. It is an opinion piece that was published in today's The Standard on Sunday. Actually, Angela Ambitho wrote it. And part of what she wrote, and I quote, those of you who use numbers to address your weaknesses and bolster your strengths will see the positive traction in the numbers. Those of you who listen to psychophants who advise you to ignore the opinion polls as incorrect will often find yourselves overtaken by events. If you can't trust the public with polls, don't trust them with the vote.
She's running a professional organization. There's standards that have to be met. I wouldn't let any credence to what he had to say.
I think what Duale needs is to be taken through a basic university course in methodology on how to do the sampling procedure, especially when you are doing opinion polls. And if he can understand that, probably that is when we can allow him to make that statement. He's totally ignorant about how opinion polls work, and I think he needs more of our sympathies than even a condemnation.
No,
he doesn't have a scientific mind
of leadership qualities.
You know, but the question, the converse question is, it's still difficult for a lot of Kenyans to appreciate what you're talking about. This very complicated sampling method, where a sample of 1,000 is representative of the entire population, and the question is, in a democracy as young as ours, given the historical issues that we have, is it really necessary to have these opinion polls all the time?
It is necessary because, first of all, I say they are running a business enterprise, but also we want to know whether our people focus on which issues influence elections. If we know which issues influence elections, we can either emphasize those issues or redirect the public towards other issues that they have forgotten. So opinion polls are great. They may not be accurate. There is always a percentage error. But the way to deal with them is not to abuse those who have conveyed messages, to work on the possible weaknesses and see whether you improve or not.
Your final thoughts,
Derek? I think part of it is also the way the media portrays those opinion polls. So if you splash a headline there that is going to raise controversy, then you get statements like this. My final thoughts as far as the whole political field is concerned is that pay attention to what your politician, what your political aspirant is saying. Look at their body language. Do you trust them? Is there likability factor? This is a new Kenya. We have voters who are exposed, who are aware of many different things. We should go into these polls with our eyes wide open. Don't believe everything that you read. Use your own two eyes, look at the politician and see if this is somebody that you can trust and has the leadership qualities that we need for our country going into the 2013.
Professor?
I think that anybody who is going into this election by whipping up ethnic support is not doing what is in the interest of our country. We would like everybody to go into the election knowing very well that we are one country and we have one destiny. So anybody who thinks otherwise is not the right leader. Let us look at the messages they are giving us. If they are the ones that are going to divide us, we must reject them and give the destiny of this country and make sure that it enters into the hands of those who care about our interests.
Professor Edward Kisiangangi and Derek Banga of Public Image, thank you.
It's now time to look at KTN Sports Today. I am Nicholas Mudimba. Close to 2,000 athletes faced off in the year's Bamako Marathon. Kenya posted impressive results with 2 podium finishes by Elijah Karanja, who finished the marathon fast, followed by Rajil Labul from Ghana. Daniel Kemei managed the 3rd position. The race was actually made with a lot of heat in Bamako, and it was a major setback for many athletes in the marathon. That was just in by Victor Gale. But now in the country, Sports Minister Ababu Namwamba hit out on AK President Isaiah Kiplagat of a poor state of stadia in the country. The minister accused sports officials of mismanagement, saying that the new Sports Act had enough teeth to streamline sports operations, and vowed to disband Sports Stadia Management Board. Masekandie with that report.
The North Rift region has put Kenya on the global map, but the facilities used by these international and budding athletes in the region remain in a deplorable state. Stadia in the City of Champions remains an eyesore, with a Kipchoge Keino Stadium renovation stalling for over 2 years.
We need even sponsors to donate something: a gym, a basketball court, a volleyball court.
Sports Minister Ababu Namwamba has hit out at Athletes Kenya chairman Isaiah Kiplagat of a poor state of stadia in the country. Ababu questioned why Kiplagat, who sits in the Sports Stadia Management Board, did not raise genuine issues concerning the mismanagement of funds.
Chairman, you sit as a director on the board of the Sports Stadia Management Board. Instead of asking questions, you should be providing the answers, because you sit on that board.
A tough-talking Namwamba has now vowed to disband the Sports Stadium Management Board. Ababu says the new Sports Act has enough teeth to streamline sports operations.
Be warned, those of you who have run federations and run sports like your personal property.
While presiding over the Lona Kiplagat Sports Academy in Iten yesterday, Ababu confirmed that talks were underway to ensure that the proposed multi-million Qatar sports complex in Cameroon will be accomplished and be put up in Iten, and that all funds meant for stadia refurbishment have been frozen, ordering for an audit for all sports facilities. Namwamba says the new law will take effect and monitor the elections of local federations. Athletics Kenya is set to conduct its polls on February 20th this year. Masikandie, KTN in Elgeyo Marakwet County.
A shift to matters soccer now. Abdul Razak will travel to Aspire Academy in Doha, Qatar next month after impressing scouts from the Qatari Academy, elite academy where Razak has been elated that after 2 years of existence, the fruits are being realized. However, they note that the national team selection needs to be open to other teams, not only in Kenya Premier League, to realize the national team's ambitions of dining with the big boys of football.
A couple of months ago, scouts from Aspire were in the country to look for talented youths. The scouts were looking from a pool of 50 players from the East African region. From the 50 players, the list was whittled down to 5, and out of the 5, Abdul Razak made the cut. He is elated that he will be joining one of the best academies in the world, but believes work has just begun.
We strive to work as a team, like we work together from defense to attack.
I've learned so much. I've learned how to be a family. I've learned during training, I've learned how to shut the ball, how to control the ball, the basics, and even technical things.
Elite Academy has been in existence for less than 5 years, and what makes them tick, according to their coach, is the holistic approach to the game.
Tunajaribu sana kukuza hiyo talent as kila player kivyake. Unatafuta hiyo player development, kila player kivyake.
The academy was in Denmark for a series of tournaments last year and will be traveling to Manchester later in the year, where they've been invited in their age group tournaments. They believe Kenya has a firm foundation but needs more nurturing.
Inaonyesha wazi kwamba mafunzo wanayopata kutokana na mbinu wanazopewa na makocha wetu inaleta manufaa. Hawa wachezaji wanaonekana sasa wanapata ujuzi na maarifa ya kucheza mchezo wa kisasa kwa njia ya kisasa,
But why would a country that boasts of some of the best youths with their tiki-taka kind of football still have a stage fright at the biggest stage?
Kenya Football Federation to do is actually have mechanisms whereby you can be able to go into the grassroots, look at talent, identify that talent, have 1 or 2 clubs. If it's Harambee Stars, have 2. Okay, let's have a category, 17, 20 or 21, have 25 or whatever it is, and have the national team.
For now, they continue to prepare themselves, hoping that more of these youths will attract the eyes of foreign scouts and join the ranks of Celtic's Victor Mugubi, who began from such a humble beginning to become one of the most sought-after properties in Europe. Indeed, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a step. Reporting for KTN Weekend Prime Sports, I'm Hassan Juma.